we are joined by a guy that I fully expect to be an all ACC player next year at Louisville. That is Ryan Conwell, Xavier transfer, who is making the move down to Louisville from Cincinnati. Ryan, first and foremost, man, congrats on making that decision. Appreciate you being here. You were supposed to be a big surprise, but Goodman felt like I wouldn't recognize you. Me, the guy that loves the Big East, wouldn't recognize the guy that went out and was averaging like 20 a game in Big East play this year. Can you believe that?
I mean, I don't really know what to say to that. I mean,
I didn't know without your uniform. Hey, without your uniform on, I didn't know if you definitely know. It's the off season. We've been dealing with a lot of stuff around here with the portal, so our minds aren't as sharp as they were a month or so ago, Ryan. So I wanted to make sure. Rob just turned 40. All right, he just turned 40. So he's a little bit older. His mind's not quite as sharp.
Yeah, it's all good though. It's all good.
Take me through the decision-making process. Obviously, when Sean Miller left, Xavier kind of made a decision to leave Xavier for you, probably a little bit easier. But take me through the thought process of the recruitment and why you ended up on Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, this being my third time around, just already being in the transfer portal a couple of times before this moment. I mean, that time, it was really kind of, it wasn't as stressful as the past couple of times. Me and my family, me and my parents, we already knew kind of what to expect, especially, the season that I had this past year. And I'm very thankful for that. And even just the year that I was able to have, at Xavier with Coach Miller and the whole staff and my teammates. So, just going into the portal, it was more or less, just trying to find that fit, that place that could, just help elevate my game to just another level. And, just help boost me to get to that next level, which is the NBA. And, being able to go to a team that's, that's able to win a lot of games and advance far in the tournament. So, I definitely consider a lot of different schools and, just being able to talk to Coach Kelsey and how passionate he was about me and my game and how much, he thought of me just as an individual as well. And, also going on that visit and interacting with the whole staff and just everybody at the facility, it all felt like family. And, it's not too far from my hometown. So, all the pieces kind of connected, and that's what ultimately led me to make my decision to go to Louisville. So.
All right, so Ryan, 2 years ago, I remember being at Indiana State, and I remember the total NIL of the team was less than $100,000 2 years ago. Like, how crazy is it how much this whole landscape has changed since, again, you went in the portal the first time and you were at Indiana State? Obviously, what you guys did there was incredible. But to think of, like, the whole payroll of that team, the whole NIL payroll was under 100,000. And I'm not going to ask you what you're making, but I know it's a whole lot more than 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, really just, at Indiana State, we all, especially during that time, nobody was there for the money. We all just had a love for the game and, all just felt like we could have a huge impact with the team at Indiana State. And, it's just really great to see just even this past year, just seeing all my boys, we all able to venture out, to different schools and, continue on our basketball, careers. And, I would just say, like, with the NIL aspect, I think it's all just a blessing, in my eyes, just being able to get paid for just playing a game that I love. But, I never, have played the game just to make money. It's just something I love to do and something I put a lot of time and effort in daily. So, all the money and, all the other things that come with it is all just a blessing. So.
When I watched Louisville last year, and I watched the way that Pat Kelsey used Rain Smith and kind of had him, as the trailer, had him running off of all those screens, a lefty with a sweet stroke, getting shots up. I got to imagine when you're sitting there and you're watching some film and you're thinking about the Louisville Cardinals and you're seeing how many – there were games when he got like 17, 18 threes up. I got to imagine that Ryan Conwell, when he's looking at where to go to a place where he's going to let a lefty shoot 18 threes a game. That had to be pretty appealing to you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely was just the style of play, that Coach Kelsey runs and, the 5-out offense, fast pace, shoot a lot of threes and layups is definitely, something I was looking towards, just where, I would find my next school. And I think, just my ability to play different positions and being able to be on and off the ball, would just be able to, help Louisville, and Louisville just being able to help me, and I think the players that I'll be playing with as well, it'll all just come together well. So I'm very excited for, this upcoming season.
So the coolest thing that I've been told about you is the fact that you've been at 3 different places in 3 years with 3 different coaches. You never wanted to leave necessarily the place you're at, but obviously the circumstances were Josh Schertz goes from Indiana State to St. Louis. Sean goes from Xavier to Texas. And in 3 years, you're going to graduate. And a lot of people talk about the academic component, Ryan, right now. And
Right.
while it's great that you guys are making money these days, the academics have become secondary to a lot of players that are just choosing it based solely or mostly based on finances. Why has this? And I guess you look at it. How do you look at this from somebody that does value the academic component?
I definitely wanted to give a strong shout out to my mom and my dad. That's just something they've instilled in me and my brother, ever since we were young. And I think, just even from high school at Pike High School in Indianapolis, my mom was so hard on me and taking dual credit classes, and I really didn't understand why. And, just trying to get all these different credits, and I just listened to her, even though, I didn't really understand why, and, took those classes and come here now, even though I've been to, 3 different schools, going on my 4th school, I'm able to graduate, and I'm able to get my bachelor's, within 3 years. And I think it's all just a blessing, every parent wants their, kid not only just to go to school, just to, play the sport that they love, but also, just to have great academic success. So I think, just as much as I take pride in, on the court and, being the best I can be on the court, I take a lot of pride in being successful off the court as well. So I think it's very big that,
Do you
I
worry
even have.
though, Ryan? Do you worry though that it is hurting that they're not thinking? A lot of players aren't necessarily thinking about the future because again, hopefully you play for 10, 12 years, but a lot of guys aren't going to have that ability necessarily. Do you worry that the academics have become kind of a side note, a secondary deal?
I think, it just kind of depends on everyone's viewpoint in terms of, how they view school. I think some people, they do, are more focused just on, playing sports and, getting to the money rather than academics, and then other people are very high on the academics. So I really think it's just all perspective, to be honest. And, in my personal opinion, I think academics is a big deal. So, and that's something, like I said, my parents instilled in me. So I take a lot of pride in that. So.
Well, so what are you going to do once the ball stops bouncing? Once that NBA career ends up coming to a close? What's Ryan Conwell doing in 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely want to play as long as possible, but like you said, the ball will stop bouncing at one point. I do love sports, all different types of sports, so I do want to do something in terms of like sports marketing in that aspect, or I am thinking about going to Louisville and doing something within real estate. So it's kind of those 2 different avenues that I'm kind of searching through. So I'm gonna make sure I got something when the ball starts bouncing. So.
Well, you do have a little bit of something to invest here, and the best investment that you can make is in property. So if you want to get into real estate, man, it's those prices are always going one direction. So if you end up being a real estate agent, Jeff Goodman here is a guy that spent the last year homeless, and he has struggled to find a house that has good internet. Do you think? Can we make that be the number one priority for you when you become a real estate agent, is to help this guy find a house that has good internet?
Yeah, you need good internet, especially in our day and age. That good internet is very dependable. So I'll put that number 1 on my list.
His job is to show on YouTube, and we can't get him with a good Wi-Fi signal, man. What are we doing here, Ryan?
Yeah. What am I supposed to do, Ryan? Test out the Wi-Fi before? We're renting places all over the country. We found one. Every other one's been good. This one's been a little bit erratic, kind of like Rob Doster's hosting skills?
Wow.
Yeah, I think you just got the bad end of the stick, but I mean, it all comes back around though. Hopefully, the Wi-Fi will pick up here soon. So.
All right, I got one more for you. I got one more
Okay,
before we let him go. One more. What is the area that you're working on this offseason from Xavier last year? What's the one thing that you really want to make sure you improve before you get to Louisville and get in the court there?
I would say, I think, I'm definitely working on all aspects of my game, but mainly just being able to be, a better point guard in a sense, just being able to be as good as I am off the ball as I am on the ball, being able to make, great reads, being able to get my teammates involved, being able to, knock down shots on the move, off the dribble, catch and shoot. Just being a very diverse, player, being able to play in different positions, at different times when my number is called. I would say that's just, the main thing, just trying to expand my game more and more, just so that, just at Louisville, I can be as effective and efficient as I need to be and, down the line. So I would say that's just the main thing, being, a very diverse player.
All right. Well, Ryan, we appreciate you being here, man. Congratulations on a commitment to a staff that has more energy than I think any coaching staff that I've run into in my years doing this.
For sure.
Hopefully you're able to drink enough caffeine to be able to keep up with them. Best of luck this upcoming season, and we will see you down the road, man. You guys are going to be pretty good down there in Louisville, so I think we got to get down there for a game.